tell me first of all what we actually understand when we examine cyber frauds. What are we key focus on this cyber fraud? Why this cyber fraud? First of all, to understand this one, we must understand first of all that first understanding the word cyber itself becomes the most important and crucial element. Looking into it, I have come across with examination of crimes and criminal activity. Because we are talking about the word cyber, fine, it clearly talks about the crime that utilizes technology. When we say technology, the question comes up, I'm just sitting in front of my television, that amounts to a use of technology. So for that reason, when we examine, it is not particularly, but not exclusively as well in that parlance, we can talk about it. So basically, when we talk about technology, we correlate with internet and computers. One most important understanding comes up, can there be a cyber fraud without use of internet? This is an important question. And that is where we look and examine our Indian perspective. Certainly by the end of this particular one, you'll be able to have this understanding that what the cyber fraud requirements happen to be. And most importantly, if I look into it, and let me ask and open a question to the audience, do we have an act to deal with cyber fraud where the objective is very clearly enshrined therein? This is particularly for the audience from the law background, that do we have the act where the objective of the act happens to meet the requirement of cyber fraud? Or it is somewhere that the cyber fraud has never been thought of. It is particularly the IPC, and now the new name has come up, which shall deal with this particular perspective of frauds, because IPC, earlier 1860, never dealt about the word cyber. And for that reason, many laws or many acts which amounted to offense under the IT Act were left. Now, other important thing comes up, that any criminal activity in which computer is an instrumentality or a tool or a target is the one. And this is where we have the IT Act. When we examine this particular perspective, what sort of a criminal activity are we talking about? Now, to understand this entire slide and this particular scenario, we must look into two perspectives. If there is a fraud, yes, there is a law. There is a law which was introduced in 1860, and from there we have come up to the new extension of a law which has come up on 1st July 2024. But when we look into 1860 law, did it ever mention the word cyber? The word cyber was very much absent. Nowhere we talked about cyber. Neither, I tell you, when we got our IT Act, that is Information Technology Act in the year 2000, the cyber word was undefined. Interesting to note, the definition of the word cyber or cyberspace correlation only came up in 1986. That was a science fiction novel by named Neuromancer, where William Gibson, who authored it, he said there is a tomboy cyberspace, and was defined under Bush administration in the year 2004 during the election campaign, when he talked about what he means by cyberspace. Interestingly, when we look that computer as a tool or computer as a target, these are two definitions which are coming up, where the scope of our procedural laws are applicable, but IPC gets limited over there. So what are these? Computer as a tool, when we look into it, they have been defined as counterfeiting, cyber stalking. Okay, let me ask, it is a general one, cyber stalking. Stalking is understood somebody just keeping a follow-up of some other person without the knowledge or information or with the wrongful intent as well. That has been defined as stalking. So what do we mean by cyber stalking? Anyone from the participants? I really love to hear from the participants as well, so that we can have an active, interactive session. Anyone? What do we mean by cyber stalking? Has ever cyber stalked you? Has there been a scenario where, yes, certainly you feel that we are unable to connect in the same manner like the audience is right now thinking? we are not even concerned that, yes, sir, yes, we had an incident or an episode where we were stalked. Stalking is not necessarily by the unknown person. That can be done by the known persons as well. Okay, fine. Let's go to the other one. Is there a cyber defamation as well? Defamation is certainly a part of IPC, but has there been any cyber defamation? Because these are all the offenses which we analyze every day as a faculty member, as a student, and we undergo till the time we look and examine this one. What about the forgery? Has anybody been a victim of forgery? Teachers are most, when we look into it, and there have been many other things. Because when you talk about forgery, oh, just we have to put across that particular understanding and go for it. Email spoofing, it is actually coming up very much that when you receive an email, there is a bogus email coming up from some other person, you don't know about it. Intellectual property crimes, those who are aware about trademarks, copyrights, they are well versed with this particular understanding that yes, the copyright law, there are many cases which have come up. If you look into the recent judgments, where we look into it, the application of section 52, it was Rameshwari photocopy which settled the dust in India, that certainly the photocopy falls within the purview of section 52 specific to the facts of Rameshwari photocopy. And trademarks, yes, sir, we heard about trademarks. Section 911 of trademarks law, when you talk about it, it clearly says, okay, fine, who can have a registration of a trademark, who can use this one, what are the absolute grounds, relative grounds of refusal of a trademark. In that one, the courts have acknowledged that yes, these domain names are regarded as trademark. Online gambling. Fine, how come online gambling, where computer as a tool becomes the one where the offense takes place? Rigging comes up over there. Pornography, this has been coming up, and pornography has now come up with respect to its various branches. If we look into it, we start with obscenity under section 292, go till section 66E, that is talking about the privacy under IT Act. Then we analyze section 67, 67 capital A, 67 capital B, that where the incidents or happen to fall within that ambit. Sale of illegal articles. We already had a case, Bazi.com. What happened? A compact disc containing obscene content was offered for sale on Bazi.com. This was the platform which was being used. Financial crimes every day, because these have become a reason to near about 900% in India. I'm talking about over last 10 years, the increase in financial crimes have led to 900% increase. Now, when we look into it, computer as a target, fine, these become very specific that how we look and examine these particular perspective. Computer as a target, that is unauthorized access, which is also referred as sometimes hacking. Though the law uses the term unauthorized access under section 43, under section 65, combination of reading invites civil and criminal penalties. Information theft or data theft is the another one. Fine. Email bombing, only to disrupt your connections, services, or to let go that when you are being bombarded with the emails, your utility emails are being bounced because your data being full or complete. Data diddling. That means manipulation of data, changes in the digits, changes in the statistics. Virus attacks. Okay, let me tell you, one of the objectives when we were debating about the Information Technology Bill in the year 1999, and thereafter, before it took the shape of an act at that time, one of the most important virus which was being talked about in the parliament was Love You virus or I Love You virus. What was this particular virus? The virus got attached to MP3 files and thereafter corrupted the system. This was the one where they talked about that it is still time required to understand IT Act and we should not act in the haste. Internet time theft. Can anybody just look into what is the correlation of internet time theft? Nowadays, it has been through various studies where one of the studies was big data. When you look into this big data study, it talks about that economy is driven only through the data nowadays. When you talk about data driven through economies, you to correlate with the time. if somehow I'm able to affect your time, that means that data is not being transferred in the real time, you lose important value to it. Then there is a theft of computer system. And lastly, distributed denial of service attacks, also known as DOS. That means I'm trying to access it. Somehow I'm not able to go through the particular service. What happens? Your money credited but not received is the common thing with respect to the financial fraud. So when we look into these particular terms, these are just one of those offenses for which we talk about. But if I look into the screen right now, was the Information Technology Act introduced to meet all these aspects? Can anybody answer? Even if the wild guess, I'll go ahead with that one. Was this Information Technology Act in the year 2000 thought of that we will have these crimes which are displayed on the screen and we will be dealing with these particular crime? The answer is no.
No.
No. So Kamna, why do you say the answer is no for this one?
So because at that point when the IT Act was formed, the cybercrime was not that known to everybody. We were just aware about the cyber theft and the viruses and the Trojan attacks.
Yes.
Even email bombing was not so popular. Only DOS attacks were there.
Yeah.
Rest of the financial crimes, illegal article sale, then with the introduction of deep web, all these have come after 2000.
So that means we are very clear, okay, fine, this was not the objective. Now, one more question. Do you actually know what was the objective of IT Act then? One thing we are clear that it never dealt with the cyber offenses or cyber crimes. Then what was it dealing with? Why did we introduce IT Act? One particular reason why it was introduced, it was an international obligation. Under UNCITRAL, United Nations Convention on International Trade Law, it only talked about one particular aspect, that every nation who happens to be member of United Nations must incorporate alternate means to paper-based commerce. Understand, this becomes an important one. That means we were in the process of introducing a law which shall deal with alternate to paper-based means of commerce, meaning thereby whatever is not covered under contract law, we need to incorporate it so that the international sanctions are not being attracted. Clear? So then how come section 43, section 65, 66, 67 found their place under IT Act? It was, if I talk about these ones, we already were working in 1998 with respect to talking about, there was a committee which was sitting to talk about regulations of cyber cafes. And at that time, we had already talked about that we would like to incorporate something, some mechanism to regularize them. Until that time, we thought that, okay, fine, now it is a 1996 mandate which is coming up. And on 30th January 1997, UN General Assembly has approved it. We must introduce. And that is where all the, if I talk about cyber defamation, forgery, email spoofing, online gambling, pornography, were proposals from none other than the police departments. That yes, we need somewhere these particular crimes, and that is where 43 was incorporated, 65, 66, and 67 came in picture. But nevertheless, the entire objective when we go through IT Act is confined to section 11, 12, and 13 of the IT Act only when combined reading has been made over there, right? So shall we go ahead with this one? Now, what to understand cyber fraud, there is a simple understanding. Let's understand the fraud, and then we're going to read it in the light of word cyber. Merriam-Webster's Learner Dictionary says, deception, wrongful gain or loss is a meaning for fraud. So when we talk about the crime of using dishonest methods to take something valuable from another person, a copy of something that is meant to look like the real thing in order to trick people, a person who pretends to be what he or she is not in order to trick people. So this is a fraud as per understanding which was given under IPC, the earlier provisions, and to be read along with the IT Act. Now, types of cyber fraud. And I'm certainly that we may have come across or we may have analyzed these particular one at one point of time. Tax evasion. Yes, it happened. But what did we end it with? We called it in the later stage, it is not a tax evasion, it was a tax planning. Tax evasion, each and every country is suffering. Someone may be suffering in the points percentage of 40%, 50%, 60%. What is a tax fraud? Tax fraud is using the gimmick, using particularly the tools by which we can clearly show that we are not placed in India and our income is attributable to a country which is qualifier for tax haven. And that is why the Income Tax Act brought an amendment in the year 2012, changing the term control and management to the term place of effective management. Securities fraud, yes, that is too much happening right now because we have still to give a legal recognition to the Bitcoins. And when we look into it, only the tax has been coming up and played upon. So that way, security frauds is basically coming up where you become one of the linkages within that particular perspective. Rigged gaming games. Fine. Rigged gambling games actually talk about clearly that, okay, fine, the gambling games, online gambling games that we have heard of are becoming very much popular. Religious fraud, marriage fraud, investment fraud, intellectual property theft, insurance fraud, identity theft, fraud to get government benefits, counterfeiting of currency, embezzlement, credit card frauds, false advertisement, false billing, banking fraud, franchisee fraud, fraud upon the court, ATM fraud. So these frauds are increasing. Now, question comes up, how do they actually affect the cyberspace? What is the credibility of the cyberspace? And how to safeguard one from these or such kind of frauds? I have suggestions in this particular perspective also, which I will be talking about. Now, going over here, how it is actually different. When we talk about pornography, obscene material. So cyberspace versus traditional space, how they are different. In pornography, if I say the first part, section 66E, intentionally I'm passing a reference because it talks about the privacy, but still I'm looking into it because in the privacy, there happens to be certain element touching upon section 67. So moreover, pornography has been discussed under Information Technology Act under section 67, then 67A and 67B. So that goes with the gravity as well. B talks about the child pornography. When I talk about the obscene material in the offline laws, basically, or the traditional laws, we talk about section 292 under the IPC, where we talked about what is obscenity has not been defined. Obscenity has nowhere been talked about. So when you look into this particular obscene, fine, starting from Ranjit Diudeshi in 1965 or referring to 1950s, Obscene Publication Act of UK, going to Anand Patwardhan case or coming to Avik Sarkar case, they have dealt with this one. When we talk about section 67, 67A, 67B, not particularly the cases have come up to deal with, but we take the cue from the IPC provision, section 292, to apply it and better understand section 67. So this is how the crimes are different. So when we talk about trademarks and copyrights in cyberspace, we have Rediff. Now, important thing, when I say Rediff, I'm referring to trademarks, phonetic similarity. That means you have to guess, English being a foreign language to us, whether Rediff, which I said, was with R-E-D-I-F-F or R-A-D-I-F-F. Same ways, another case came up, Yahoo.com. I'm talking about the .com eras in 1990s because right now we have a country-specific domain names as well. That means .co, .in, so that we can be placing an identifier on the server and to extend the jurisdiction of that particular law. So when you talk about trademarks, .com era came up with yahoo.co.in by Akash Arora, yahoo.com by the Yahoo Incorporate. Same ways, there have been many such which are coming up. Now, when I talk about the copyright, yes, copyright is the one which has come up and seriously affected. When you look into the copyright, so what about the books which are available online PDF version, free for download? Are these copyright violations? Answer is yes. So how do they do it? How do they are able to commit such a crime and no action has been taken up? They are able to do it because we are unable to extend our scope of the law. That means jurisdiction outside the law. So that means law becomes incompetent. The question comes up, is there any international treaty to look into it or regularizing where the person or the party gets affected? Answer is no. Why is it so? Because the technology itself has to be understood. That I'm hosting a particular website from a server, but that is not a server. I have primary server, secondary server, and now I'm having sub-secondary server. That means 3 server. And where are they placed? They are placed intentionally in places where the law will not be extending. For example, MySpace. Fine, myspace.com, that particular came up. Clear? Thereafter, IP crimes in offline, we have many. Section 9, Section 11 of IT Act, Section 52 of copyright laws. And thereafter, we also extend it to inventions, that is, software as invention in some exceptional cases. Most importantly, why are we not talking about inventions when we talk about patents under the cyberspace? Because still we are under a dilemma. We are still not having a clarity that software is usually regarded in Indian context under the copyright form and not under the patents law. So that is one particular separate field, but it touches upon this particular perspective. So now we have spoofing, phishing. What is spoofing and phishing when you talk about it? I send all of you an email and where I change up these particular perspectives that, okay, fine, spoofing and phishing happens to be dealing with that particular perspective. That is, phishing is exactly common to FISHING. That means I come up, I have a hook, I just throw my fishing rod and that particular hook in the sea, try to look forward for the perspective person who's going to be coming up. In India, it started in 2002, 2003, where it was very much common and popularly known as Nigerian fraud when we were giving a regard. That means email being sent to everyone that you have won a lottery. Come and claim the prize. In return of claiming that particular prize, I ask you for the bank authenticity, you need to pay certain amount so that the authenticity could be developed. But what happens in turn? Instead of coming with the authenticity being developed, you end up paying me either 35,000, sometimes 1 lakh, or sometimes 2 lakh rupees. And after that, you are left with no other scope. And it has happened to many, many individuals, and the crime left unreported because there were no such particular provisions by which we can actually track up. That means, what about the forensics? There was no forensics, how we can look into it. I'll take that particular example with respect to this one as well. Phishing similarity with respect to marriage fraud. If we go back to the slides, it just clicked my mind. I'll tell you, a high bureaucrat, and he was having his sister in Mumbai. They got in touch through shadi.com. This is a recent one. And this has come to my knowledge through a known person. And he said, sir, what could be the remedy given to that particular person? Now, what happens? There is a prospective proposal, and certainly the high bureaucrat was looking for a good match. And that is why shadi.com, they looked into NRI. They were happy. They started actually having an interaction and a communication. Ultimately, what happens? He says he's flying from Dubai to India and he's been caught at Mumbai airport. Certainly, there has been certain reasons, and the customs are saying you pay certain amount, then they're going to release. Initial transfer is 5 lakhs, second transfer is 7 lakh rupees, and next transfer is 5 lakh rupees. So if you say these transfers will be made only on one day to different, the pretext the person played, the boy said was that these 3 officers are need to be bribed, then only he can be released. What happens? That person never flew to India. Nothing happened. The amount has gone up. And it is, I'm talking about the case where it is registered right now in UP only. So that way, when we look into it through this marriage fraud, through these proposals, marriage proposals, that is shadi.com had come up. And certainly the action shadi.com is not liable. Any guesses why it is not liable? Any guesses? Because they are just the service providers.
They are just the intermediary.
Right, Kriti? When you say intermediary, this concept was also perceived through US. Section 2W read with section 69 when we 79 when we look into it, it clearly gives an idea that yes, intermediary will never be liable, right? So then we have viruses, that is Trojan, worm, only to affect, only to hurt. Simple word is hurt. Denial of service attack, that is wrongful restraint. Data theft, correlating with the theft. Unauthorized access or hacking is trespass. Right now, when we talk about it, initially when the data was costly, I'm talking about 2007, 8, 9, 10. If you analyze the cost of data at that time offered to the customers, find that was very high. At that time, somehow if I take away your data by creating a loop and I'm utilizing your data, that means I'm taking something from you. That ways I was not only taking access of the internet from you, that is a service, but I'm taking and managing your data as well. It happened with the prominent universities that their entire data was taken away. And this is where now we today acknowledge and recognize there are cloud services, right? So that ways when we look, these are the correlations with respect to cyberspace and traditional. So what happens actually? There's a virtual victim. So when I say virtual victim, he is being only feeding and surviving on data. There is a wrongful access who alters the false entries. What happens then? He misuses by alteration, addition, and concealment. I'm sure out of the participants 39, one of you may have come across that your friend is in emergency somewhere outside India, and he says, kindly transfer me certain amount. And you are just looking into it. Yes, I have received an email. It is coming from a genuine email. And you may have tried to cross-check because you are having a mobile number. And when you cross-check, he says, my account has been hacked. Facebook, it was very common. Gmail, it is very common. When you look into it, and many others. I have a citations for that one, which I'm going to be sharing up. So what happens actually? Everything correlates with the finances. And that is why we talk about this has been given as data-driven economies are seriously affected by this one. When we go ahead now, what is the modus operandi? First of all, there is an acquisition. That means skimmer, hack, intercept, point of sale, or phish. Fine. You skim the card, you hack the system, you intercept the POS, that is point of sale. Remember those things where you intend to withdraw money from the ATMs, and they were saying that kindly check for additional separate devices not to be installed on that particular one. Or when you go for actually shopping, you are using the card, they try to tell you very clearly, kindly be sure that fine, the machine is working, or ensure that you cancel out the last transaction. Sometimes they were giving you the second particular machine to swipe it up. Phishing is the one which they are common. They're going to throw the emails to everyone and fish out the person from whom they have looked into. Then they sell, that is resale of these information on the darknet and other resellers. That means now what do they have? They have the entire perspective. Everything they have, my data, because that is how. Now further, the processing, that is pin code filtration. Now the data is getting organized if you look into it. Now pin code filtration, there's a block check, filtering the credit ratings. That means kindly checking that, okay, fine, how we are looking into it. Then laundering it through online payment gateways, prepaid cards, and Bitcoins. Another example I'll share with the Bitcoins, there is a software engineer in Dehradun. And he has actually asked me, this has happened in March. He was offering his services in US and he agreed to receive the payments in Bitcoins. Now, when he receives the Bitcoins, he certainly has to sell those Bitcoins. The Bitcoins was worth 15 lakh rupees and 17 lakh rupees. When he offered for sale, he said, okay, fine, I'm going to be selling it out. He was given a proposal that I will buy at a rate which you desire, but I will make a payment through the other account. Now, the service provider for the point of sale where the trading of the Bitcoin happened, they clearly said you must check their authenticity, social security number, be clear, because ultimately it is your money. Now, important thing, he sold Bitcoins, the request came up from A, but the amount he received from B. Now, what happened? It came to him. He is C. He got into trouble because in Gujarat, the crime was reported that there has been a money laundering of 15 lakh rupees. That means the B has lodged a complaint. And since the money has transferred to C, he was liable to pay and they were looking into any connections through which A could be seen. No, the chat is over here restricted, chat is secured, and they do not look into that particular perspective. So that ways he becomes one of the links between money laundering. He ended up himself coming into this trap. Now, what is scenario? He runs to Gujarat cyber cell, Gujarat ACP he reports. He comes to Delhi, again looking for National Crimes Reports Bureau, looking for what remedy he has, and ultimately there's nothing traced. So how he concluded, he said, okay, fine, I'm ready to pay from my pocket. The laundering was succeeded. So this is how they are looking into it. So now what are the challenges that we examine, that we are looking into it? When you are part of the WWW, that's World Wide Web, Tim Berners-Lee introduced World Wide Web in 1990s. That was regarded as .com eras, which uses a public internet but requires specific software configuration and authorized access. So this data is being collected. Now darknet, it is a peer-to-peer or private overlay of network popular for illegal online trade involving drugs, weapon, fake currency. Anybody aware about what is peer-to-peer? Any idea? It is most important right now, and we are certainly connecting through peer and peer-to-peer. Any guesses? I believe everyone loves to hear songs. Yes. Since 2004. Yes. Even before that. Yes. So you must have heard about the term Napster. The Napster was the one to actually come up that we will not be connecting through the server and workstation. Rather, we will have peer-to-peer. Meaning thereby, if I have 41 participants, all 41 participants can share their information equally. That means without server being in place. But right now we have a Zoom as the service provider. You remove the Zoom and you say all of us are being there. The cases for peer-to-peer when it has come up was myspace.com. That is myspace.com versus Super Cassette Industries Limited. Peer-to-peer, when I say, it was initially Napster. Napster was shut down legally, calling it out that you are not the one who is affected, but the beneficiaries are getting affected. Thereafter, it came as Torrent. Torrent was shut down. BitTorrent, that was also shut down. Now, uTorrent, that is also shut down. You may ask, sir, uTorrent is still functional. However, can we say that it is shut down? We can say that it is shut down because the country-specific domain names do not allow them to host their website. So what do? They change their server location to the countries who are relaxed with respect to these particular one. For examples, at one point of time, I'm talking about 2002 to 2008, songs.pk was the website which was very popular amongst the generation to download these songs, hear these songs. What was it? It was a Pakistani broadcast, a server being placed in Pakistan. So what happened to Indian counterparts? Were they not able to enforce their rights in Pakistan? Answer is no. No IPRs, because copyright did not extend it over there at that time. And even the laws were not that particular clear. So now we have Tor, that is the onion router, directs the traffic through the free worldwide volunteer of over 7,000 relays. It's why onion router, the name has been given exactly like an onion, a layer and a layer and a layer that relays the network so that the data traffic can move smoothly, but it cannot be looked into it. Because of breaking it down, this onion layer network, it is difficult to identify where the source or origin was. And that is where the countries are finding it difficult to ensure that it does not go to it. And that is where cyber warfare is not something new in 2024. We have already dealt with cyber warfare. I'm talking about India. And if you look into, there is a clause in India which is working for this particular scenario. We have cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Monero, etc. They are tradable assets for peer-to-peer transaction. Now, most important, these are peer-to-peer transactions, especially on the darknet. Further, they are hardened by the tumblers. So this way, these are the challenges, how to look into it. One example I talk about this one, that when we look into this particular scenario, we may be thinking that certainly we need to work upon. We are lagging behind under IT Act. No, we are not lagging behind. When I say we are not lagging behind, you must have heard about those having interest under IT Act. Initially, we introduced under Section 3 was digital signature. Later on, in 2009, we came up with the concept of electronic signature. If I say, put it across, electronic signature is a simpler term. That means anybody sending an email is using electronic signature. Digital signature is a more specialized, more specific, and more authentic, which establishes the identity. More crucial, that term. So why did we actually were using digital signature have to introduce and incorporate electronic signature? Certainly there was a UN, because United Nations introduced model on electronic signature 2001. That was one reason, because they had that particular understanding that not every country is specifically having that particular infrastructure. When we look into it, when I say infrastructure, meaning thereby digital signatures require a third-party authentication, which is known as CAs or certifying authorities. And there was a controller of certifying authorities, that is CCA. That is how it came up. So that means we use that proper technology that particular time. Then why did we relax? So that each and everything could be seen as e-commerce activity. And that is why we came across these particular ones. These are only few challenges which I have identified. Now let's look into these particular one. If your mobile gets stolen, you only go under Section 379 of IPC. Am I right? I did. I lost my mobile 5 times. None of them got recovered. So that means I was only going for sometimes no FIR was registered. They said, sir, sorry, just write it over there. This was there, this place, and this is where I have lost it up. In case we find it out, we're going to return back. If I talk about that happened somewhere before 2007, when I was just a student, was I even concerned about my data? The data in the phone, the images in the phone. Now I say, okay, fine, there could have been morphing. There could have been other instances. But what happened? Nothing. So 379, only IPC. So do I have any provision under Information Technology Act? No. So that means where to go, how to look into it. So I am just reminded of a case, that is Syed Asifuddin case, that if at all I can show my data was stolen or accessed, either I can go, when I say moment I say data being accessed, I talk about tampering. I talk about Section 43. When I invite Section 43, I must be able to identify the person who has done it. Or when I invoke 65, I must know the ingredients of meeting up the tampering requirement. Second is receiving stolen mobile, computer, phone data that is found somebody else. 66B, it's attractive. That is asking for 3 years imprisonment or rupee or 3 lakh fine. And under IPC, it is dealt with 411. Now, what does it mean? It means even when you find a pen drive lying on any place, before using it, you must be very careful. Because one thing usually a software expert person will say, I attended one of the workshop of AWS looking into how Amazon was coming with their work studios. They said sanitize it. I said before sanitizing, we have Section 66B and 411 which are attracted. How to balance it out? They're nothing. Because if you find a pen drive, moment you try to know that to whom this pen drive belongs, you will try to access it. And moment you access, 43 is there. And moment you open a file, it becomes Section 65 is also attracted. So that means sometimes good deed turns out to be a crime in India itself. So another is data owned by you or your company in any form is stolen. Then we have Section 66, which calls for up to 3 years imprisonment or fine up to 5 lakh rupees. And 379 is being attracted. I have a case for this one, that is Vijay Kumar versus State of Haryana. I'll tell you brief facts about this one. What happens in this particular clear case? Fine. There is a company. That company has taken the contract with the bank at Faridabad. That was to actually go for digitization of entire data, documents, records at the bank. They appointed a person on over there. Fine. He was working as the technical expert who was to giving instructions. Since he was the admin at that time, having the rights of the manager, branch manager as well, he used to look into it. Smartly, what he did, he just opened the account, his own account in that bank. From each and every account, certain amount was being transferred. That was very petty amount. And he kept on doing it till the time one day this was discovered by the manager, where a fixed deposit being made for 1.2 crore rupees, where the interest attracted in 1 year exceeded 60 lakh rupees, and this 60 lakh rupees was being transferred to his account. Now, offense has not been made out till now, but there were withdrawals being made by such person to complete the offense under 419, 420. And that is how he could not give a plea that it was the error on part of the system and could be rectified. Moment the withdrawals are made, the intention is shown. That is how a case come up. An email is read by someone else by fraudulent making or use of password, section 66. The case is Sanjay Govind Dhanda versus ICICI Bank and Vodafone. I'm going to pass a reference to this one so that we know that, okay, fine, these cases are coming up. Sanjay Govind Dhanda has served already as a director of IIT for a long duration. Thereafter, he started his own business. Participating in that particular business activity, one day he gets to know on Friday, specifically I mentioned the dates. On Friday, he gets to know that his data is not working. His mobile phone is not working properly and is being dead. He sends his driver to the Vodafone store. They say, sir, kindly do one thing. You come back on Monday, fulfill the requirements. We're going to issue you a duplicate SIM. That's it. Sanjay Govind Dhanda visits on Monday around in the evening, fulfills the documentations over there, gets another SIM card because there was nothing wrong with his mobile phone. When he gets that particular SIM card, he figures out there has already been more than 30 lakhs transferred to different account in ICICI Bank. Question comes up, during the investigation, it is found out, how did it took place? There was in another state, a duplicate SIM being issued in name of Sanjay Govind Dhanda without verifying the credentials, and Vodafone has done it. Vodafone took a plea, usually it is a Monday, and manager is not coming up. So we give that particular SIM, and on Monday, when the manager comes up, he signs the document. So that means it is authentic. That is why Voda was liable partially. ICICI Bank, the account to which the money was being transferred by obtaining the OTPs, on that particular principle, the ICICI Bank did not went for KYC. That means they allowed the bogus account to be opened in the bank. When the bogus accounts were being opened, operational, and on demanding, kindly share the CCTV footage of ATM, banks, where the money has been withdrawn by any individual, they refused to do it. So there was partial money which was recovered from one of the bogus accounts, and other thing, it was penalized for Vodafone and ICICI, relying on Abhishek Goenka case. Now, important thing, what is Abhishek Goenka case has to do with it? Abhishek Goenka case established thing very clearly that the SIM card is the one which holds the personal data of the individual. So reading in light with respect to section 43, capital A, and SPDI, that is sensitive personal data or information rules of the IT Act, they held, yes, they are liable on these particular principles. So this is where we look into it, how they have examined. Our biometric and thumb impression is being misused. That is why when we look into it, Uday, UIDAI, Uday has actually come up that somewhere this Aadhaar is not the mandatory requirement for any functionality. But yes, bank do actually talk about that whenever you open an account, you must have Uday certification or somewhere go for that particular authentication process. An electronic signature or digital signature is being misused. So over here, there's a punishment under 66C. The example is NASCOM versus Ajay Sood case. Ajay Sood created a fake email ID, reflecting it to the persons who were receiving the email that he is the one who is dealing with NASCOM. NASCOM is a big corporate. And when we talk about NASCOM, they clearly showed that yes, he is the one who is representing and he has taken money from the general public that was very much higher in number. A phishing mail sent out in your name asking for money, that is very common under 66D. So that way, these particular provisions have been coming up. Another one, to capturing, phishing, or transmitting the image of the private area without any person's consent or knowledge. 66E attracts Section 292 under IPC. This is where I talked about. I'll talk about one or more scenario where one of the students has asked about this particular scenario. So what remedy do I have under these particular things? Student belong to a particular community, and that scenario happens to be of Delhi only, working in Gurgaon at a corporate sector, where that particular community never allowed women to be dressed in the Western dresses. A friend of her has taken a picture of her wearing a Western dress and circulates that particular one, where aunt has found out that yes, the niece is wearing that particular dress. And this particular image where she is wearing Western dress has been circulated in the community group, because of which the marriage proposal has been turned down. Now she seeks a remedy against her aunt. Can she attract Section 66E? Answer is no. This way, when we look into it, because this is the one provision from where, when we look into it, 67, 67A, 67B actually starts towards more gravity of the offense. But now she says, my marriage has been broken because of this image being shared across, which I never desired anybody to click it up. But since she was in public area, there cannot be any restrictions on that particular one. Hence, 66E was not applicable. Tampering with the computer source documents. The case over here is, again, Syed Asifuddin case. How many of us remember that Reliance phones, when they were introduced, that is 500 rupees was the price that was kept? Remember those? Based on CDMA technology, code division, multiple access, right? Later on, Tata came over there, and there were few people who were offering that you can change your Reliance phone to Tata phone. And that is where Section 65 was qualified, and it amounted to tampering. Data modification under 66A has been coming up, where the imprisonment has been coming up. But these fines, when we look into it, because of awareness, not only amongst the general public, but also amongst the other persons and the executive machinery, we are really helpless in actually concluding these particular one. And most of the cases go out of the court settlement. 12th one, sending offensive messages through communication. 66A. Remember 2015? Shreya Singhal versus Union of India case? That is where it was being coming up, and we have done away with it. Hope all of you recollect that one, because it read with 19.1A, 19.2, then coming to Shreya Singhal, then reading 66A. Anyone?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right?
With that case.
And most importantly, if you have read that particular one, what happened to 69A and 69B? They were held constitutionally valid, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And the reason was only one. Was for 69A and 69B, we have rules incorporated therein, but for 66A, there is no procedure enshrined. Hence, relying on that particular understanding, it was held unconstitutional. Publishing or transmitting obscene material in electronic form, we go for 67. For first conviction, it is 3 years. Second, it is 5 years. And subsequent, it will go till 10 lakh rupees. Section 292 is attracted. That is the first time when we look into it. Section 67, publishing or transmitting obscene material in electronic form, where we look into it. 14, publishing or transmitting of material containing sexually explicit act in electronic form. Important thing, 67 is general, 67 is specific, 67B is very specific. If we look into this particular one, for all of them, when we look, Section 292 is to be read so that we can know that what amounts to obscenity. The understanding is to be deduced from the IPC provisions. So over here, 15th is punishment for phishing, publishing, or transmitting of material depicting children in sexually explicit act. That is child pornography, and that is where 67B actually comes across. Clear? Misusing a Wi-Fi connection. How many of us know that, okay, fine, it attracts the punishment as well? Many times we go for finding and searching for free Wi-Fi. Do we know that moment we connect to free Wi-Fi through a gate, we are opening not only to access the services, but to allow the data to be transferred from our device. That is why many places free Wi-Fi connection is being offered not as a service, but to get into your mobile phone, to implant a Trojan, to look into your data, to check the financial scores and look into other perspectives. So that is attracting section 66. Planting a computer virus if done against the state, that is up section 66, where again it is coming up. Conducting a denial of service attack against the government or a computer, again 66 is being attracted as per the terrorism gain its significance only after Have you heard about PNR data? Passenger name record data? Now think over it. What data do you provide while going for passenger name record data? Specifically when you travel through trains, travel through airlines. Now let's focus on airlines. How long somebody could store your data? In France, the duration is 5 years. And data theft, whatever I'm talking about on the left-hand side, that is misusing a Wi-Fi connection, planting a virus, conducting data theft, all qualify as an act of cyber terrorism. This becomes an important one. Now, stealing a data from the government, not allowing the authorities to decrypt all information and passing through it, attracts 69. Important thing I highlight over here, how you must be aware about the BlackBerry came to India. When BlackBerry came to India, the data services were not offered for more than a year. That means when they entered India, research in motion was rather paused for a duration. And when it was resumed, if I have to buy a Vodafone pack, data pack for my Apple phone, I have to pay 400 rupees. But if I'm buying it for mobile phone BlackBerry, I have to pay 700 rupees per month I'm talking about. Why there was a difference? Because the government said BlackBerry to share its data, and BlackBerry was considered even now. And there is, I'll tell you, there is a documentary on this BlackBerry phone as well, that why it failed and why there was no punishment against those who were running this BlackBerry, despite there were many changes. This is where now authorities said that there is a provision to be introduced that any service provider rendering services across India related to internet services or any other services qualify as technology, use of computer or internet, must share data. If they do not, then there is a punishment. Now, when I say under 69, while referring to it, I refer to Intermediary Guideline Rules of 2011, Digital Media Ethics Code of 2021. When I look and examine on these ones, reading these provisions clearly come across with these ones. Intermediary is not providing access to information stored on their computer to relevant authorities. A case is Google versus Visakha Industries. Failure to block the website when ordered again attracts 69A. That is 69A talks of and 69B talks about blocking of information, interception and monitoring of the information. So that is why these are all coming within the perspective of those particular one. Word, gesture or act intended to insult the modesty of a woman, it's still not being provided on the under the IT Act, deals with 509 IPC. Sending defamatory messages by email, now we do not have 66A being regarded, but 500 IPC deals with it. Bogus website cyber frauds, 66D. Email spoofing, 66C. And along with IPC provisions. Making a false complaint, 66D. Forgery for the purposes of cheating, For the purposes of harming reputation, again 60-60. Email abuse, 500. Punishment for criminal intimidation, 506 IPC. Criminal intimidation by an anonymous communication goes under 507 IPC. Copyright infringement, 66 and 63 and 63B of the Copyright Act. Theft of computer hardware, 379. Online sale of drugs, NDPS Act, and online sale, again, being coming within that particular perspective. Clear? Now, important thing. If we are clear till over here, please. Hope this much is clear to all of you.
Yes, sir, indeed.
Any queries till now? Because now I'm going to be talking about certain practical experiences that have come up by virtue of these citations being made in the Journal of Criminology. And this is where it comes up. So these also qualify as cyber fraud. And these are very much popular in India, but they have already happened, and the laws in Western countries have taken a strict cognizance of it. So when you talk about using internet social media sites to abuse, embarrass, attack, or target a person, what all comes up? Harassment. Continuous, hateful, inappropriate messages. Fine. Ritu Kohli case in India is the one which talks about it. Stalking, persistently following someone intention to harm, scaring him or her. Harassment and stalking simultaneously somewhere come in combination, and that is where cyber stalking comes up. Flaming, it is a higher degree of harassment, that is public bullying with harsh language. Masquerading or impersonation, fake social profiles with the purpose of bullying. I believe, at least from us audience, one of you may have come up that certainly, sir, it has happened with us, and we have to inform publicly to our friends that yes, our profile has been hacked. Kindly do not send money on or anything when requested from this particular profile or a message being received. Doxing, that is public sharing private images. Very common because we correlate with this one with that is putting the image of somebody else, and for that reason there has been stringent actions which have come across. Earlier, if you would search, this is a common search, you search for signatures of Amitabh Bachchan, you're going to find exact copy of the signature of Amitabh Bachchan. But right now, try doing it up. No, you cannot find it up. So that ways, the images have also been removed, and many people have changed their Facebook or social networking websites images as well, so that they cannot be morphed, they cannot be done, or they cannot be looked into it. And let me tell you one most important thing as well. If you try scanning $1 and read out the message that comes on the scanner. First question, will it scan? Anybody? Try scanning $1 or a pound. Will it scan? The first question is, will it scan? No, it will not scan, because money has been given certain dots within them by which you will receive an error. Corrupted file, this cannot be scanned, or something else. I believe the same may be applicable when we look into Indian currency, which is being newly coming up, or that may be looked into. Clear? Now, crimes reported in US. Just a photo sharing. Sharing of a personal photograph through various means without the subject's consent. Now, how the person affected is saying. The picture now shows up in Google. When my name is searched, I am in my last semester in school to become a public school teacher. I begin student teaching in a week. I will be teaching high school. It only takes one student to Google my name before the entire school finds out. My career is in jeopardy. Please help. I do not want my career to be mined because of something like this, and I would never want to think of any of my students could be victimized the same way. Just because a photograph was available somewhere on the Google Meets or any other public platform, and something happened by virtue of a personal photograph landing up over there. Important thing, people are paying to have certain photographs like this. Example is photomorphing, that is myx.com. Now important, the website myx.com charged between $499 to $2,800 for removal of an image. You know what they came up? The website's removal policy stated, as a general rule, if you don't want your photos of you end up on the internet, be more careful who you send them to, or better yet, don't send them at all. This website was being challenged, and this was rightfully taken down in 2018. They're again a photo morphing state. Further, physical harm caused by a sharing of photograph. Can you think there can be a physical harm? Now, when I look into it, this is one victim. Sarah discovered a photo of herself accompanied with an advertisement on Craigslist. This is an adult entertainment site. Sarah's ex-boyfriend, Jebediah's type, communicated with over 100 Craigslist users. McDowell showed up at Sarah's place and physically harmed her, attacked her with a knife sharpener, and left her bound and gagged on the floor of her own home. McDowell later insisted to the police that Sarah asked him to physically assault her and offered the Craigslist conversation as a proof. Unfortunately, stories like Sarah are not unique. When I was discussing this one, there was one incident in 2020 during the COVID terms when it was Karnataka High Court hearing of the matter where such photograph of an individual has crossed Indian borders. Hence, Indian servers could not look into it. It was beyond the jurisdiction. And when the court asked to the complainant, do you desire the court to intervene to take down that one? The complainant withdrew that, no, sir, whatever loss has been done, the reputation has been soiled by coming to the court of law. I would like to rest my case here only. This has happened in India. When we look into it, what usually these cyber frauds end up with? Mental and emotional harm to the victims. 93% of the victims suffer emotional distress. Over 50% of the victims contemplate suicide. 49% of the victims are harassed or stalked by individuals who saw their private images of them online. 3% of victims have legally changed their names. From depression, anxiety to difficulty sustaining future relationships or finding employment, perpetuating gender stereotypes, and suppressing female sexuality. The harms of non-consensual pornography are as wide as they are deep. And this has come up now. This is correlated terms. When you talk about consensual pornography or revenge porn has been coming up in India, were very common because of, we can correlate it with the consent of the adults to recognize themselves as live-in partners. Victims' confession to such incident, one of it. And it is from the feminist criminology, which was published in US, and a female survivor who shares this one. An advocate, Anamarai Chirani, shared after her boyfriend auctioned personal photos of her on eBay. The loss of control overpowered her life. What she confesses and shares, I didn't sleep for months. When this happened in 2010, I would pop awake and I have to check my email addresses, my work email address, my Facebook page. I would have to perform this ritual. I check eBay, I check Google, my name, you know, the same thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Someone else had defined my destiny. This is one confession. Why and how it happened? Because of the trust. One photograph, how it went. And this has become a common in India as well. Though there are crimes not being reported to the police, no proper action has been taken up. And certainly we are yet to see that certainly High Court's intervention or Supreme Court's intervention or coming with that particular decision is still awaited. So when we go further, we have suggestions how we can actually limit these, because that is what the entire purpose of today's discussion is. We understood cyber frauds. We understood the extent of cyber frauds affecting the life, certainly specific to the women's. Fine. Furtherly, set up the rules that there are cyber etiquettes. Meeting online friends, be clear about whether accepting the invitation and friendship, react, that means be alert, ignore, block, tell a trusted adult about the obscene and offensive messages or your next friend. Report harmful or illegal content. Grooming, that is online predators are looking forward for it. Remember, there was a boys' locker room incident in May when we examined that particular one. That was online predators coming up. That is adults being hunting down on Instagram, boys' locker room being created. That is where it came up. Though when you talk about it, what was the action? It is all stalled. Instagram will not be liable because they are intermediaries, but others are. Defend your privacy. Don't leave the digital footprints. Don't try to come up that to find what you are doing till the time you are certain with. When I talk about don't leave your digital footprints, there are many incidences of robbery taking place at ease because a person was on Facebook continuously posting where they are, how they are, and they have turned on their location. Let me ask a question. We have around 42 participants. How many of you are using Android phone? And if you are using Android phone, kindly check how many of you are sharing your location at this moment. Take a pause for a while. Go into the settings and examine that one. How many of you are sharing your location online? And are you aware that your location once being on, it's not only Google, not only Google Maps, not only Google per se and all of the apps, but other application also which get benefit of accessing that one. Whatever you talk about it, everything is being done over there. Clear? So that is it. So how to prevent these ones? When you are on social networking, do not share location. Do not share home address. Do not share personal information with the friends of friends. Limit your connection to only those to whom you know. Check your privacy settings and control how others can tag you. Limit your app permissions. Social engineering and phishing. Do not send sensitive information over the internet before the checking on websites security. More importantly, when you look into it, sbi.co.in. I will not go and access anyhow. Why? Till the time I see a green colored lock on the left of the address bar that yes, website is secure. Do not respond to unsolicited call, email, or visit of personal or financial information. Do verify the legitimacy of a doubtful email by directly contacting a company. Malware. Install updated antivirus. User vigilance required. Pay attention to the URL because how you write it up, how it has been considered, everything. Malicious website may look identical to a legitimate site. That means when I say rediff.com and rediff.com, only change of alphabet E with A, pronunciation comes up phonetic similarity. So that way it may end up wrongly. Identity theft, that when we look into it, clear? Owners should destroy expired identities such as driving license with the expired identity expired date. Restrain using identity documents on social media, boarding passes, etc. Do not store identity documents within the system like credit card. Cyber stalking. Keep work and social networking email addresses separate. Do not place all the information online such as date of birth or employment history. Use photographs that do not identify the locations. Use nickname and not the legal names on social media. Utilize the privacy settings of various platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and others. So when we go ahead on these particular one, I extend my thanks to the Maharaja Agrawal Institute of Management Studies, Dr. Kirti Jori, dear participants, organizers, coordinators of Faculty Development Program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Do we have any questions from the participants? The floor is open for the interaction with the speaker now.
Anything anyone would like to discuss?
I guess, sir. So we have a question in the chat box.
Okay, let me access.
Yeah, where to complain when someone is talking?
So there is NCRB. There is a cyber cell in every state, also National Cyber Cell that has come up. So when you go over there, you have to just report your clearly written, go to the police complaint, identify a cyber cell in your area. If not cyber cell, online also that can be done. And also National Cyber Cell helpline is also maintained, specifically looking into women's being looking targeted as a victims. So that is available.
All right. Thank you, sir. Any other question from the participants? I guess we can now proceed with the conclusion of the session. I invite Dr. Mukesh Kalwani to give away a vote of thanks to our esteemed speaker today.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Anil Singh for giving out his time, for taking out time from his busy schedule. I hope and I'm sure that he would have definitely given a lot of wisdom about cybersecurity and the nuances related to it. And the participants would have definitely benefited a lot from that. And in the meanwhile, I was just pondering upon some of the topics which sir has covered. One question has come up to my mind. Can I share, sir?
Please go ahead, Mukesh.
So actually, there are some loan apps which are very much in the advertisements that we see. So these loan apps guarantee that we get a loan in 3 minutes, 5 minutes without any documentation. So is there a chance or a possibility that they can also commit some scandal or a scam after we install them in our device?
Yes. What will happen usually when you are asking for any financial application to come over there? First of all, they will not install. And secondly, if they install, they will take all the permission.
Okay.
They will take all the permission to the extent that they require, and they will automatically set up your biometric as a key password.
Okay.
Or that ways your data will be going to them. Most importantly, any financial app to work right now, they are going for two security layer encryptions. So when you share it up over there, they will keep it to themselves. So most importantly, nowadays we are using AI. All of us have heard about chat GPTs.
Yes.
But do you know that these chat GPTs, when they take up the data, they are not only taking the data, they are evaluating you, the user, and they are correlating and collecting all the data from all the applications, and they are focused. And you will certainly see that after buying a new phone, and when you install a chat GPT, you will clearly say, sir, 5 GB of my space, I don't know which system is using it up. And they will not reflect that it is chat GPT using it up, because that will be transferred, rigged upon. One example of this one is, if we go and shut down our mobile phones every night for 8 hours, you will be secure and safe because in that particular time when your routers are switched on, that is where the syncing takes place. And that is why it is a good and healthy practice. Kindly go for a detoxification from this technology, and sometimes switch off these devices, may it be router, everything, because right now air conditions connected with the Wi-Fi, television connected with the Wi-Fi, washing machines connected with the Wi-Fi. Most of us will have Alexa or Google at home. Siri is working up. So it has been said over and again that these are always working up. So what are we doing to stop them? Nothing. So that means every AI, whenever you look into it, or every application, kindly verify the credential. I'll take an instance. I was looking forward and to look into AI perspective, Gemini GI. You'll not believe, Google is not coming with Gemini GI when I try to download it up. It was Mr. Singh who was selling it up, and that can be downloaded because the icon was there. What was written was Gemini GI. To understand who are coming with this one, who are content creators, I found out that it is an individual who's coming up. Now what to do? Moment you press install, it is click and buy. So that means moment you click it up, you are downloading everything, and moment it gets downloaded, already your data gets uploaded as well. So it is a two-way dimension going on. So that ways we have to be careful about it.
And how to distinguish between a valid app which is not going to steal our data and not cause any harm, and from these apps which can cause scams or
so one thing to cross check the authenticity, go to the address bar, look into it. Instead of going for Google apps, Instead of going for Apple Store, you can look into it. If you are unclear, Apple Store gives you the correct information. It will allow you to examine that particular perspective, but have a double authenticity. For example, I would like to have a SBI app. I prefer to go to that one, trusted, checking the green lock, then looking into it, and then going for the options of download software. I check that one twice, or alternatively, I go to the App Store, look into it, read up who has created the content. One most important thing, even in Google Apps, they will show you who has created it up. So if you find SBI has created, you are free to download. You may find that it is not SBI, individual corporates, then you must restrain yourself.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks for sparing out your valuable time.
Thank you, Mukesh.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir, for
Priti.
sharing those wonderful tips as solutions that we can use to secure our digital life and space. Thank you so much once again, sir. It was always a pleasure to be your audience.
Certainly. Thank you. And nice talking to you, Mukesh, after a long time.